In this video, we cover the second A of access control, which is authorization. As a reminder, the first A is authentication, which we covered in previous videos, and the third A is auditing, which we will cover in subsequent videos. So what is authorization? It is the assignment of permissions to individuals or roles. So we have multiple individuals that can have assignments to access data, servers, files, etc. So when you consider authorization, you need to understand what the subjects are and the objects. So there are various different kinds of access control. The first one is individual access control. And with all access control, you're going to have a reference monitor that's going to determine what access each individual or group is going to have access to. So for individual access control, they're going to log in and the reference monitor is going to say, well, you have access to this database or these files or this server or this org chart, etc., whatever it is that they need to have access to. On top of individual access control, you have what are called role-based access control. This could be group permissions. So this could extend their permissions beyond what they already have as an individual to be able to have access to additional files, etc. So that is the basic access control for most things. But if we go to military and national security access control, we need to talk about two other types of access control. The first one is discretionary access control, which basically grants user and group permissions with zero knowledge of the object sensitivity. So for example, it's just based on your identity. This is similar to your individual access control, where you're granted based on your identity what you're going to have access to as the reference monitor deems appropriate based on what you've been assigned. Additionally, we have mandatory access control, which takes their access and looks at it based on the user or group permissions and object labels. So there's going to be a certain label that's assigned to certain individuals, and that's going to determine what access they're going to have. To show you what this looks like, here are the different levels or labels that a person could have in military national security. So first is public. This is defined as data that is freely available to the public. Then the next level up is unclassified. This is defined as data that is sensitive, but it isn't as damaging as other data that's out there. The next type of data is confidential. This is data that, if there is unauthorized disclosure, could lead to damage to national security. The next level is secret. Unauthorized disclosure will lead to serious damage instead of just damage. And then finally, top secret is that unauthorized disclosure of this data will lead to exceptionally grave damage to national security. So when you consider these national security and military authorization levels, you need to understand that there is no read up. So if I'm a person who has confidential access, I should not be able to read any documents with secret or top secret information. On the other side, there is no write down. So for example, if I'm a person with secret security clearance, anything I write should be considered secret, even if it would be just normally confidential. The reason why is if I have secret clearance, I may have seen the information, and by writing the information, I may accidentally include secret information when I'm writing just confidential. So anything that I write will be considered secret. Same goes for top secret. Additionally, with authorization, we need to consider the principle of least permissions or least privilege. This basically says that a user is granted only permissions or privileges that are critical to do their job and nothing more. So take, for example, this scenario here. We have one user with initial permissions of A and C, and then we realize that they needed to have permissions E, and so we add E. Let's look at another user, and let's say that they were granted the initial permissions of A, B, C, D, E, or F. And then we realize that they should only have A, C, and E, so we remove B, D, and F. So which way of granting privileges is better? Well, first of all, the one on the left is better. And why? Because the side effects of errors with the first one is that it's inconvenient, it fails safely, it may lead to frustration. And this is because a person may not be able to do their job and it's inconvenient, but those permissions could eventually be granted. Whereas the side effects for the right side here is that it is a security violation. They had privileges that they shouldn't have been able to access. Also, the permissions may not be revoked completely, and so they may continue to have access. I currently work with a few colleagues who tell me that they still have access to systems that they were granted privileges to many years before, and they continue to have these privileges. And this is an example of a failure of following the principle of least permissions. Thanks for watching my video. Feel free to click the links here to watch the next video of the playlist, continue to the next playlist, or subscribe.